Welcome back to the show today. We are talking about the different paths to the NBA, and which paths are being increasingly more beaten. The first path is still the most common, NCAA, or college basketball. In 2015, 87% of the NBA played in the NCAA at one point in time. In 2020, that number went down to 84%, and the number is decreasing every year, due to basketball becoming more popular around the world. And that leads me to my next path to the NBA, playing professional basketball in a country outside the United States. Typically, this path is for players that are born outside the United States, although you do have players that leave America to go play ball overseas in lieu of going to college. LaMelo Ball skipped college to go play in the NBL in Australia, and Emmanuel Mudiay decided to go to China and go play in the CBA before declaring for the NBA draft. You also have the opposite though. You have players in other countries who come over to America to go to college and play basketball. You have Pascal Siakam, who came over from Cameroon to go play at New Mexico State. Same thing with Joel Embiid, who is also from Cameroon. He came over and played at the University of Kansas. The thing is though, all of these players made that decision before our third path existed, that being playing semi-pro basketball in the United States, something like the Overtime Elite League or the soon-to-be defunct G League Ignite team. I literally got the news that the G League Ignite was shutting down when I was writing this script. Players could still sort of in a way make around $100,000 to $500,000 playing professional basketball before they hit the NBA. Well, if these players are good enough to be making that kind of money, wouldn't they be good enough to just join the NBA right away? Sure, most of them probably are. But in 2006, the NBA instituted a rule that is now called the one and done rule, meaning players had to be 19 years old the year that they entered the draft, and they had to be 1 year outside of high school, which put an end to players like LeBron, KG, Kobe, Dwight Howard coming right out of high school into the NBA, which kind of sucks because if a guy is ready to play with the big boys, shouldn't he be able to? Not really, because for every NBA legend that came right out of high school, there's an 18-year-old who joined the NBA too early and couldn't handle the amount of pressure it took at 18 years old, and of course couldn't resist that amount of money, so I get it. You may think, well, it sounds like the NCAA would be in cahoots with the NBA to get this rule passed, right? The NCAA obviously wants these top-tier recruits to come through their programs before they reach the NBA, right? That's not the case because the NBA did create the G League Ignite team to compete with the NCAA for these top-tier recruits. The G League Ignite team was a team that was created by the NBA to compete in the G League. At this point in time, it's a team full of players that are waiting to get into the NBA that are right out of high school. The G League is the NBA's development league. The G stands for Gatorade. Here's the thing. I believe that Adam Silver and the G League president, Sharif Abdul-Rahim, don't like the NCAA. Both of them have said they created the G League Ignite team to fill a hole in the marketplace, meaning they wanted to get athletes paid for the revenue that they are generating as entertainers. And now they're doing that with NIL deals. Mission accomplished. No need for the G League Ignite team, right? No, the NCAA still sucks for basketball players and any college student that doesn't care about college sports. So let's talk about the NCAA. For years, the NCAA has had the monopoly on pre-NBA prospects. They also had the luxury of not having to pay these players, which they still kind of have. But now, college athletes can accept name, image, likeness deals from brands. Basically, they're allowed to promote brands on their own social media, which seems like something that they should have always been able to do, right? Why wouldn't they be able to do that? So in theory, college players can make as much as a G League Ignite player, right? Not really, because most of these athletes that can make a lot of money with a name, image, likeness deal are football players, pretty women, or sons of LeBron James. What players can make off these NIL deals are pure speculation, and for most of them, it's not even close to what they could be making as semi-pro basketball players. Also, you gotta sell a little bit of your soul to get money. You can't just get paid to play basketball. You gotta scratch someone's back. You gotta get on Instagram and talk about how much you like Liquid IV. Gross. Not Liquid IV, I've heard it's actually pretty good. I'm saying the fact that someone is telling you, hey, we're not gonna pay you, but they offer you the alternative, hey, you can be a walking billboard for some brand. That shouldn't be something that someone has to do in order to get compensated for their work. I don't think this is a ridiculous opinion. So personally, I'm really disappointed that the NBA is dropping the G League Ignite team. A lot of people are saying it's because the G League Ignite team is having a terrible season, but that can't be the case. Teams have bad seasons. And every year, there's quite a bit of players that are drafted from the G League Ignite team. Jalen Green and Jonathan Kuminga were drafted after its first season. Green was drafted 2nd overall and Kuminga was drafted 7th. Since its inception, the G League Ignite team has had players drafted every year. Currently, there are 4 players from the G League Ignite team that are expected to be drafted this year. So what went wrong? I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm sure we'll find out what happened this week. But I do know that the NCAA has to be really relieved, right? So now, if you want to play professional basketball before you hit the NBA in the US, you have to go to the Overtime Elite League, which is a semi-pro league that plays out of a facility in Atlanta that's similar to the G League Ignite. But instead of playing in the G League, they play in their own league that has 8 teams. So far, the only real success stories that have come out of the Overtime Elite League are the Thompson twins, who were drafted this year 4th and 5th. Pretty good. It will definitely be interesting to see if the current G League Ignite players come over and play in the Overtime Elite League, or if new players players that don't go to college want to play in the Overtime Elite League, if it'll be a legitimate way to the NBA. I'm hoping for the league's success. I did a video on them a while back, and I think they're doing a good thing. But I believe at this present moment in time, the best way to get over into the NBA is by going overseas and playing semi-pro basketball. I think for a long time, there was a stereotype that players that were drafted from Europe were soft. That is not the case anymore, man. I think more and more, the players that are coming over from Europe are the players that are most ready to play in the NBA. I'm not going to use Wembanyama as an example because he's such an anomaly, but I think back to 2018 where people were sleeping on Luka Doncic. He was 18 and he'd already won the EuroLeague MVP, but people still didn't believe in it. I think scouts look at players from Europe as more ready to play basketball than the one and dones in America. But here's my ultimate opinion though. Every player in the NBA draft is good, so it's all about your expectations of that player. Take a player like Scoot Henderson. Most people consider Scoot a disappointment this year. His numbers aren't great, his team isn't great, and he's had some injury problems. The thing is, Scoot is young and he has a lot of potential. He was not drafted because he's ready to be a starting point guard in the NBA. He was drafted because he has the potential to be a star in the NBA. He's just not that right now. He's still good though, and he's going to be better. On the other hand, you have a player like Jaime Jaquez Jr. You probably didn't know who he was before the NBA draft, right? Unless you're a real sicko. He's 3 years older than Scoot. He was drafted 15 positions lower. He was drafted to a better organization than Scoot. So at this point in time in their careers, it's not fair to compare the two. So I don't think it matters which path a player chooses to get to the NBA. I think the most important thing is for that player to declare for the NBA draft at the right point in time. I think Chet Holmgren is at a major advantage this season for being in the NBA for an entire year before he actually played. And speaking of timing of when you declare for the draft, I'm hoping Bronny James does not enter the NBA draft this year. I know his dad is getting impatient, but he's just not ready, man. It sucks to say, but Bronny's stats at USC have been downright bad. But he's 19. He could blossom into a legitimate NBA player. But I believe if he were to be drafted into the NBA this year, it would stunt his development and ultimately ruin his career. All right, thanks for being here today. Let me know what I missed. There was a lot. I could have said a lot more stuff, so let me know what I didn't say. I always reply, like, dislike the video. I don't really care. Be good to your mama. Eat a corn dog. I hate saying that.